through with the help of what's presented on the screen. Here go. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Just please confirm if you can all see, right? Just give me the thumbs up emoji. That works. All right, cool. All of you can
Yes,
see the
Deeksha
screen,
ma'am,
right?
it's visible. Yeah.
Right, thanks. Okay. So yes, congratulations. You've already been told you were like what the best performers from your respective categories. It's only for four teams per category that we're left with now for the semis. And
And I'm starting to
it's
see
going to be
a
tough
bit of
competition.
pushback right here.
Somebody's
Colors getting a lot more red. 5 minutes and here
somebody
are the results. What do you think about this Amazon lip popper? Did it work?
You can actually see that difference. I haven't even used.
Nirvi, you were not muted. So now I've done it for you, but please be mindful, mute yourself. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover in the training, I mean, the orientation today. So there's going to be a couple of instructions on what you're supposed to do because offline is a lot more, like a lot, it's just different, not difficult, it's different from how online rounds happen. Also, because so many of you will be traveling from your respective states to Delhi, there's just a couple of clarifications we'd like to make. We'll give you the tentative schedule because you've got your pre-boards and whatnot happening in and around this time, which we completely understand. So we'll let you in on how you can manage your day without hurting yourself academically in the process, right? Important note on sub themes, yes, that's going to happen as well. So like I said earlier as well, the theme remains the same throughout rounds, nothing really changes. But then the sub theme, as in the nuances and the kind of motions you can anticipate based on that sub theme or the nuances, is something I'm going to perhaps shine light on. Then again, I mean, this is the part where we reiterate the WSDC format to some extent and give you tips for it as to how to manage this better as a team that's still largely new from. I mean, you've done a couple of rounds with each other now, so there is some level of familiarity, but just in terms of how to coordinate offline with the same people because you'll be meeting each other and you will also be going impromptu if you're the middle and senior category in one of the round in the finals. So for all of that, we're going to be imparting with a couple of tips. Offline debate, criteria for judges. Yeah, rest of the things will happen as and when we cover the slides. All right. So first of all on schedule, because this is very important for you to book your flights, be there at IIT Delhi on time. Uh, and that's how we run the tournament on time at large, right? When we have all the participants coming in exactly when we wanted them to, and the check-ins should be right when we like solicit it to be. Because the thing is that we'll be starting at 8 a.m., which means there's a lot of registration process that happens at IIT Delhi, of course, when you enter. So you have to have like some sort of verification done, etc. So please have that buffer time on you.
In
9,
progress.
9 a.m. to 12 noon would be your semifinals for all categories. So by 12 p.m., we should be done with the semis for all of you. The result announcement, though, will not happen in like your respective rooms, which means you do the debate, you get some sort of feedback without the revelation of the verdict from the judges, and the final verdict disclosure happens in the main room at 1:15 for all the categories, right? This means that once you're done with the rounds, you stay back after the debate for the judge to give you some qualitative feedback, but not the verdict. And then once you had that verdict, you can just come back to the main room from which you went to your respective rooms for the debate rounds. The verdict will be declared in the main room is the moral of the story. So don't be waiting for it in your respective rooms. 1:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. would be the finals. And of course, the teams that advance from the semi-finals are going to be playing the finals, which means that two teams get eliminated in the semi-finals from each category because there's one losing team in each of the rounds and there's two like rooms running in a semi-finals setup. So yes, two teams will be there in the finals from each category. After result declaration, that will become clear. If the semi-finalists who did not qualify for the finals want to stay back and spectate, you are more than welcome to. In fact, it's suggested if there's no other commitment that's like urgent and unavoidable. But for some of you who have exams, etc., can't wait for closing ceremony, so on and so forth, we completely understand. So you need not wait for the closing ceremony if something is really keeping you from attending it, right?
Yeah, Nitiksha ma'am, just one point to add that we definitely have a lot of awards coming in, and we have kept the fact in mind that we have to recognize all the people coming from the qualifiers to the finals to the runners up. Everything has an award category, so just be mindful of that. And we suggest you to not book your flight tickets back home on the same day, because we have awards waiting for you. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. Yeah, so the closing ceremony is going to be fun and nothing that you can anticipate because these are not conventional award categories. So Devika, in that sense, is right. You don't want to miss it as long as you can attend it because, I mean, there are individual awards, which means that this has nothing to do with whether you qualified or how your team performed. So yeah, there are perks for you to that should get you to stay back. So be there for the closing ceremony. I'm just giving you an alternative in case you really have to leave. All right. This is about the semi-finals. Just 1 second. Some problem with the screen share. Just 1 second. Yeah. So semi-finals and finals will be knockout rounds, which is to say that yes, like I said, these are elimination rounds. These are unlike the qualifiers for those of you who are coming to the out rounds for the first time or are participating in a tournament for the first time. Knockout rounds are just rounds wherein, in order to advance, you need to win in that round. Okay, it's not like everybody can get to play and then we'll decide who gets what. So if you are not the winning team in your room in the semis, this means you're not, unfortunately, advancing to the final round. All right. We were on this slide. Yes. The second most important point is the sub theme. Now, how do you prep for semis and finals? Semis and finals are going to be similar in terms of the sub theme they are based on, and it's largely status quo, right? Status quo, as in the India as you see it today. This will be a forward looking approach, as in what is it that can make India better? What kind of policies would you pass? What are the alternatives that we can have to existing ways of governance or whatever else we have in the country right now? How can we subvert that in order to make India better? Sort of narratives will be run in the finals and the semis. So this is like the culmination of multiple things that we've discussed so far. We've discussed the past, we've discussed the problems we've had, we've discussed the kind of approaches we should undertake, pessimism, optimism. Now, this is about conflating it all and saying that eventually, given the past and given the precedents that India has followed so far, this is what we should be doing, or this is what the future trajectory should look like. So, if so far you've debated based on precedent, if so far your debates have been retrospective to a very large extent, that kind of debates that you're going to have in the semi-finals and the finals are going to be about are going to be anticipatory at large, which means you anticipate a future and then you envision a future and then you work it out in your debate and say that okay, our premise for what the country should look like in, let's say, by 2030 or in the future at large is the better premise. Those kinds of debates, right, where you debate the future of India and say our vision is better than the other side's vision of India. So that's what the sub theme means. It's pretty cryptic, otherwise India today brackets 2023. And topics, yes, this is also mentioned in the slide because, as always, we'll be sharing the deck with you. So, for those of you who are not listening too keenly about the sub theme, just pick on these keywords when you're looking at these slides: present concerns, forward looking policies, approaches, aspirations for the time to come, futuristic debates. All right. About the motion release schedule, right? Now, this will start from 23rd onwards. The junior category will have all prepared rounds. This means you're not going to do any impromptu rounds. Not going to, yeah, so there's not going to be any motion release at the venue at IIT Delhi for the junior category. You will have it all to yourself before the date, right? So semifinals and finals motions will be released on 23rd November, 11 a.m. We'll try to do it at, yeah, we'll do it at 11 a.m. both semis and finals motions. All right. The stance, of course, will not be given to you. It'll be given to you on the spot, but then the motions are yours to look at and prepare on. Middle category, then your semifinals are round is a prepared round. You'll get the motion 20 on 23rd November, same date but different time, 12 p.m. All right. Finals motion is impromptu, which means that you come to IIT Delhi, you play semis. If you qualify, we'll be giving you the finals motion after we have announced the result of the semifinals. So result declaration for semifinals happens. Then we have a finalist. Then we get a finalist to just sit down in the main room. We do a motion release. We do a motion clarification. We send you to prep for an hour. We get you back after an hour, and that's when the debate starts. Which means it's an impromptu round. You'll be prepping for it with your team at IIT Delhi. Senior category, likewise, your semi-finals motion is prepared. You'll be given that motion on 23rd November. You can prep with your team from from 24th onwards, or even on 23rd late on 23rd November we'll give you the motion by 1 p.m. So however you want to prepare, you can prepare, but the fact of the matter is that this is a prepared round. The finals motion, though, is again going to be impromptu, of course. So you're going to prepare on this motion at IIT Delhi itself. You're not going to, so whoever are the finalists are going to prepare on the motion once you're here and qualified. The format, then, I think this is just something that you can go through by yourself when you get the slide. I'll just quickly reiterate, though. All the rules are the same. Each team has 3 members, 3 speaker roles. You can decide who's going to do which speaker role. We're not going to meddle in it, even in the out rounds. You can also change your speaker role. So if in the semis, somebody went deputy, you can do they can do whip speeches in the finals if you're lucky enough to qualify. We don't have a problem with that. There will be POIs which are interjections for middle and the senior category. The junior category still does not have POIs. None of the categories are going to have reply speeches, is what the third point is trying to say. And then about the speech duration, nothing changes there as well. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes for junior, middle, senior category respectively. All right. Okay, just one thing. What changes is how you prep in the impromptu rounds, okay? So when you're given your motion declaration will happen in the main room. Once I have declared the motion, once I've given you clarifications, you will be sent to a venue, right? Both gov and op. So mostly what happens is that side government prepares inside the room and side opposition prepares outside the room. So if there is a room in which the debate is going to happen and you've been sent here, please don't fight about who gets to keep the room, because there are set rules about it. If you're gov, you're inside the room and prepping, or if you're op, you're outside the room and prepping. All right. Yeah, WSDC format, this is what it's like. I'm sure all of us know that already, but just to jog your memories. Tips and tricks for prep, yes. So how do you case prep strategically when you're debating offline? This is primarily for people who are doing it for the first time, or slightly anxious about offline debates because they're so different from online, at least in your understanding of how it goes. So first is that when you're going impromptu, and if you don't have a proper trajectory to follow when you're prepping with your teammates, and you oftentimes end up fighting with each other on how to go about it or which argument to run, just have a strategy. This means that when you're given 1 hour, you utilize it properly so as to not come to a juncture where that 1 hour of prep time has elapsed, but you still don't have a strong case, right? What you can try doing is set up the context first. And this is not imperative, not set in stone, not prescriptive at all. You can choose to do whatever you want. So this is just advisory in nature. But what you can try doing is you set up the context first, then you think about the arguments, and then you go back to the context. Because what happens is that sometimes you think about a broad framework, and then once you've thought about your arguments and what you want to run, then you are able to define terms better. But first have some sort of, like what I'm trying to say then is try to have a broad blueprint. Don't work individualistically as a team within the team, right? Don't say, okay, you make one argument, I'll make one argument, and the third person will make one argument, and that's how we present. Try to use at least 10 minutes of the 1 hour, the initial 10 minutes, to discuss among yourselves. And then once you have like a common case line which all of you understand alike, then get to writing, and then reconvene in the last 10-15 minutes to see if the ideas were properly shared, or if there was some sort of like some sort of a a gap in terms of understanding the teammate's point or like conveying your own to the teammate. All right. Now, these pointers. So set up the context. Sometimes people skip framing. I don't know. That could be because of performance pressure, also because sometimes you think framing is unimportant, but it's not. So please do the framing. And this is particularly for middle senior category, most importantly, because you have 6 minutes. So people expect framing from you. Uh, the second thing is don't forget to analyze arguments, which means again, method matters a lot. A lot of you came to the KSD session saying, "Oh, I got downmarked in the method that I was using." That's probably because you jump from argument to argument without giving it enough time to like to for people for the judges to understand it. You don't analyze it enough. You don't tell me why it's relevant in the debate. Those kinds of things necessarily lead to the downmarking uh, in method as a category or metric. The third thing is that you can use examples, but then all of this uh, advice is based on what the trends that we have seen, all right, throughout IDL, according to how people have performed. There's also a lot of people who've come to a KSDs saying that the case was good and like they had a lot of research, but then how they structured it again was problematic. One such problem is the third point, where you think you have a lot to say because you're throwing examples after examples for people to make sense of. But examples, like I've said before as well, make sense only when you have a good argument that precedes that example, all right? So don't try to make the example the cornerstone or like the mainstay of your argument. The example is complementary, it's not the primary matter or food for thought based on which you try to convey a point. So please be mindful of not giving like 10, 15 examples in one speech without explaining the relevance of any of those. The fourth thing is that you don't have to spend all of your time writing speeches independently. This is something that I've already said, but this happens too often, right? You think that we'll do our own speeches and suddenly, by some freak of luck, all of our speeches are going to sound similar to each other and we're going to like sound synchronized. That's not how it goes. You sound synchronized when you have a common case line, when you have common ideas on what can be run from a particular side. Those common ideas happen when you are discussing as a team in the initial time. Trust me, this works. But if you don't want to listen and you have a different, better straight case prep mechanism, you can use that as well. Don't blame it on me saying we used your method and it failed. This is not prescriptive. The fifth thing is coordinate and share your ideas at all times with your teammates. This means that even when the round is on, you can coordinate with your teammates. This does not mean that you can be shouting from the rooftops, explaining things to your teammates when they're just not getting it. You have to maintain the decorum of the room when the debate is on. You also have to be respectful of the speaker on the podium. But how you can still coordinate while the round is on with your teammates is through chits and slips. That okay, I give my first speech, I'm largely free now, I have great rebuttals I can think of, I need to give them to my deputy or whip. You write them down, you give it to your deputy, they'll probably understand. You can whisper like among yourself, but please don't breach the decorum of the room in doing that, all right? Um, Next up, the fifth thing is that the sixth point is about like prepping again, right? I think this becomes a point of conflict, which is why it's predetermined in all tournaments. It's just a privilege that prop gets of preparing inside the room, all right? So that's something that you need to be mindful of. Go through this, give me a minute and we'll discuss this as well.
You're muted.
Yeah, I know, I'm aware. So just go through these points and then we'll quickly breeze through it. But then before we talk about tips and tricks, which is like uh secondary as compared to other things that you might have to ask. Do you want to ask any questions based on what I have said so far? Put it in the chat or unmute and ask.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah.
Will like draws like which side, like government or opposition, will that be released along with the motion or do we have to prepare both sides?
You mean for the semis or the finals?
For the semis, yeah.
For both. Semis, you will get it on the spot. It'll be on the spot only. Stance allocation will be on the spot.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, okay. So we have
Miss,
to prepare both sides.
Okay, we'll go one by one. You raise your hands, guys. Otherwise, it's going to be, yeah. Saket was still asking a question follow-up, right?
No, okay. So basically, we prepare both sides, but the stance will be released on the spot.
Yes. Yeah. Just like it's been so far, right? In the interstate rounds. All right, Avika, is there a question?
Yes, ma'am. So, for POIs, do we have to get like placards that say POI which we hold up, or do
No,
we say
no.
verbally?
Which category are you?
Middle.
Middle or senior?
Middle.
Okay. So for both middle and senior category, this is how you go about POIs. When you want to ask a POI, you raise your hand. All right.
Correct.
And then the speaker knows that you wish to ask a POI. If they're dismissing that gesture, this means it's deliberate. Don't nag. Don't just like gesticulate by just going in front of the podium or something.
But what if
I've
they
seen
don't
people do that.
see? What if they don't see us then?
They will. We'll position you in such a way. We'll keep the podium at a place where there's better visibility from all sides for like, yeah, in the room. So that's not going to be a problem. That's like a structural thing that we're going to ensure happens.
Okay.
They will be able to see. Akshata, yes?
Ma'am, our debate is going to be on 27th, right?
Yes. 27th.
So we get the motion 5 days prior.
You'll get the motion on 23rd, yeah. We're assuming you'll be traveling on 26th, so we're not counting that day. All right, so 23rd, 24th, 25th, you have roughly 2.5 days to do your motion prep. Does that work?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Avika, you still have your hand raised. If your questions are
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I have another word. When is the motion release for the semis?
23rd.
23rd. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome, Rajveer. Yes.
Can we bring a laptop over there, like to read it off the laptop?
You could do that. It's not advisable. I mean, it's better if you carry palm cards and notepads also because it's just more workable. But then there should be no internet access on the laptop. And there'll be moderators checking it throughout. Yeah.
Okay, just to read the debate from.
Okay, if it really has to happen, then yes, sure. Okay. Rajveer, you can lower your hand. Any other questions? So now look at this, right? Tips and tricks. Again, this will be some of this will be reiteration of what has already been said. So first is do not gatekeep matter for yourself. It is a team sport. The more you share, the better it is. This means that sometimes what we tend to do is, oh, I want to be the best speaker in the team. So I'm not going to tell my deputy what they could have run or what they could run because I want to run it as the whip. No. I think you can keep sharing the matter that comes to your mind with your teammates who are going before you, and you will still have a lot to cover because the debate keeps evolving. It keeps growing the discussion as and when each speaker comes. So you might think that if my deputy says everything, what will I be left with? But then that's only until the other deputy also comes and says something against you. So you can rebut and you will always have a lot of things to rebut. So don't think about it as, hey, what will I be left with if I ask, like if I share my arguments with my teammate? Because your teammates have, I mean, it's like team sport. It's collective effort. Individually, you're not going to get to the finals. So it's better to share as much as possible, right? The second thing is deputy and whip speeches must carry forward their first speaker's claims and not run entirely new arguments, having forgotten the first speech. When does this happen? This happens when you don't have a common case line. And when does that happen? That happens when you don't when you prepare independently. When you say, okay, you think about one argument, I'll think about the second one, the other person will think about the third one, and we never coordinate about what these arguments look like. The job of three different speakers is not to give three different arguments. The role of these three different speakers is to carry forward the arguments that have been presented by the first speaker comprehensively. This means that if I don't see a link between the three speeches, I am unlikely to give the debate to you if I'm your judge because I don't see any synchronization, I don't see any follow-ups, and I don't see any value addition in the arguments that are being made from the first speaker to the last. All right. So be mindful of that. You have to have the same case in mind. You can't be coming with different ideas on the same motion from the same side when you're coming to the debate room. All right. The third point is give fair amount of time in your second speech to rebuttals. Now, this is tricky, all right? A lot of people ask me, what should my deputy speech structure look like? There's frankly no clear-cut structure because it depends on the debate. Sometimes what happens is that your opposition is not running a very good case and you are aware, in which case you think that they haven't attacked you enough. I'm sorry, they do not have enough arguments, which is why you don't know what to rebut necessarily because they have so much, they don't have enough positive matter. They're just rebutting you. In which case, rebuilding has to be prioritized, right? Because your opposition is trying to win by running a net negative case, which means they're trying to win by taking you down. So if somebody is trying to heavily take you down, your responsibility as a deputy is to rebuild your case so that that kind of a takedown becomes inconsequential or is like just mitigated by your rebuilding. All right. But in some situations, they are not attacking you so much, they're not rebutting you so much, but then they have a good independent case of their own, which means they're running a positive case. They're not rebutting you, which means your arguments are largely safe and unrebutted, but then they're also running good arguments on the side. This means that rebuilding in the deputy speech can wait because rebuilding will happen when something's been demolished. If they haven't touched your case, what's the need for rebuilding? Then maybe you can start with rebuttals. And after you're done with the rebuttals, then you come to the rebuilding part. All right. So the prioritization between rebuttal and rebuilding and what should I do first is based on what your op is trying to do and the strategy with which they're trying to win. I hope that makes sense. So much of detailing is not for junior categories, so it's fine if you don't understand this. It's for middle and senior predominantly. The fourth point is rebuttals and engagement and how they're equally important when it comes to a comparison between your rebuttals and the arguments. People think that arguments are very important, rebuttals can be one-liners. That's untrue. Sometimes your rebuttals have to be smart, right? So rebuttals can't just be like random points like we think that argument will not stand because it doesn't make sense to us. That's not a rebuttal. And I see a lot of people making those kinds of rebuttals, right? Where you just belittle the other side's argument and think that it counts as a rebuttal. It does not. A rebuttal has to be like an argument as well. You need to first tell me what you're rebutting, which is called reformulating your opposition stance. Then you're going to analyze why you're rebutting using the kind of point that you're rebutting something with. So if I'm saying that if I'm rebutting a particular point by some sort of an assertion, I also need to explain why I think this is the best kind of rebuttal, right? Like, what does it do to the other side's argument? Why does this rebuild my case? All right. So explain the rebuttal also a little bit. Don't just do one-liners and rebuttals. Okay. The second last point, or the last point, in fact, is that you need to prioritize the matter that is being contested on both sides the most. This is also important. When you're looking at a debate needs you to have ready wit. This means you need to be thinking on your feet. Sure, you might have a script on you, right? But then sometimes the points that you're talking about are not the points that the other side is talking about. What do you do then? I mean, one way is to continue talking about the points even if the other side is not talking about them. But then that doesn't lead to a good debate. A good debate is when you can talk about the stakeholders that you choose and also the stakeholders that they want to talk about. Maybe in one debate, you only want to talk about parents, right? And not children as a stakeholder. But your opposition also talks about children as important stakeholders. In that case, you should think about, you should also make arguments or like you should also rebut using children as like a stakeholder, right? So you need to prioritize stakeholders' arguments from the other side as well. You can't just run your case in isolation. All right. You need to engage with the other side and what they're saying. How to manage offline. So offline debates are similar to what you had in the qualifiers. By this we mean that the format is the same. You know the drill. You know how it goes. You know your teammates. It's not going to be so so unsettling because you've already had the experience. And then you will be allowed to carry your pages to the podium for reference, something that you've already been told. But yeah, so just try to have it all together. Try not using devices because I mean it becomes very uncomfortable when you're actually at the podium. Like it makes you ungainly because the device is falling off the podium. You're not comfortable using devices. Devices are so unreliable in terms of your dog getting lost somewhere and not and is irretrievable now. It's better to have something on paper as well. Get it printed or something if you want. So try doing that. You can talk to your teammates in between rounds. I've told you how that has to happen. It has to happen within the contours of like decorum in the room and like softly done. For POIs, you raise your hand if you want to ask one. You have to wait for the speaker to acknowledge or deny your POI. If they're looking at you and not saying something, this also means that they're denying and they don't want to take a POI at the moment. Please don't like nag or heckle in any sense of the word, right? What are the things then that you can carry in the debate room? But before we do that, are there any doubts so far?
No, ma'am.
I see some. Shivam, is there a question?
Yes, ma'am. So when preparing, are we allowed to use internet?
No.
Okay, ma'am. Got it.
Pahel, yes.
I just wanted to confirm for the finals when we get the motion an hour prior, do we get the sides then as well or on the spot?
You get the sides on the spot.
For the finals as well.
The finals, yeah. See, finals rules and regulations we'll finalize when we have the once we have the finalists with us, okay? So focus on the semi-finals for the moment because it also depends on a lot of logistical.
Makes sense. Cool.
All right, Arshia.
Yes, ma'am. So there are two questions. First, that considering the motion for the semi-finals will be released prior to 27th. So will the logic that we deliver in our speech carry more weightage, or would it be our research because it's prepared round?
It's always logic. Research, like I said, people are using a lot of examples, statistics, straight off very important sites, websites. But that doesn't matter. Like logic is always important, is what I'm trying to say.
All right, ma'am. And secondly, that sometimes when it comes to giving rebuttals, the other side tries to give the rebuttal rhetorically. So it's not a logical explanation or
Yeah, it's not.
a convincing argument, but they are giving it rhetorically. So should we point this out, or will it stand unjustified?
You can choose to point it out if they're rhetorically trying to say that, okay, rhetorical rebuttals sound like this. We don't think side prop makes sense because we are better or some such thing, right? Like it's rhetorical in the sense that you're not giving us any logical explanation for why they're wrong. You're just mentioning that they're wrong in fancy ways. If they're doing that, you can call that out, but then there's also no need to if there's no substantive contribution they're making to their if there is no substantiation of the rebuttal, you don't have to like waste a lot of your time countering that rebuttal, but then you can mention it. You can say as to how their rebuttals are mostly rhetorical. But a better way of doing it is to say that, look, these are the arguments we had, these are the impacts of those arguments, and these are largely unmitigated in the debate because side op never logically engaged with them, instead of saying that they are using rhetorics.
Got it, ma'am.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
No worries. Any other questions? Okay, apparently not. So here, very basic points. And again, reiteration, I am sure, of things that I've already said. You can carry your devices to access your speech, but it should not have internet access. We'll be sneaking into your devices. We'll be glancing through it. I mean, we'll be all very close in the same room. So please don't use internet. It'll create equity concerns, okay? We are not supposed to be having internet access while we're preparing on the impromptu rounds in the finals also. You can carry palm cards or any other paper on which you have things written. Yes, sure. You cannot carry books like the Constitution of India, an encyclopedia, or a novel to quote from, right? Because it's also a source of knowledge. It's external knowledge. It's not your own logic. Not acceptable. Research is prohibited, and any instance of it will lead to disqualification. Please be mindful of that. If there is an equity, be sure that we'll have to disqualify you and no less, because that's what the equity policy is like. So yeah, if you decide to breach the rules of conduct, then there's going to be repercussions of which you've been told before here. So be mindful of that. The criteria for adjudication, though, remains the same, just as it was in the interstate rounds. Matter, manner, method. Matter is what are your arguments? What are you pushing? What's the quality of the argument like? Like, does this argument have potential? Is it relevant to the motion at hand?
Excuse me, ma'am.
I'll take you, Team Punjab. I'll just come back to you. The second thing is manner. Manner is, again, how you present yourself. If you're reading off a paper entirely, especially as the middle and the senior category, how you're engaging with the POIs, and also how respectful of other speakers you are in the room. So all of those things in terms of conduct and like being ethical and having positive regard for everybody in the house are just things that manner will consider. And method is just how you're structuring your arguments in terms of just going chronologically. I mean, there's no chronology in making arguments, but then sometimes it's better to just you're making one argument and then you're using the first argument to substantiate your second argument, sort of a thing. So when you are able to create those kinds of profound linkages that like leaves a better impact. Again, this is specifically for the senior and the middle categories. But the junior category, for them, the method is simply following a basic trail of giving an assertion, giving an analysis, and then doing an example. Try not doing example, one after the other. That's like a dominant trait in or like trend in the junior category speeches. So try to just rectify that. All right. Yes, same thing. You can go through this. No, actually, this, yeah. You can go through this once we've given you the slides as well. Now I'm completely open to questions because I'm done with what I had to say. Yes, we'll start with Saisha. Am I pronouncing her name right?
Ma'am, you just said that we can't really use internet. So, ma'am, we can't even, the first speaker can't even take ideas from like the articles, or they can't even use quotes from internet.
No, you can use internet because yours are prepared rounds, right? Your junior category.
Yes, ma'am.
But then you will not use internet at the premise at IIT Delhi. You can use the internet before at your home, and you can keep your speech prepared as the junior category.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Team Karnataka, middle category. I can't see your name.
Yes, ma'am. So I have two questions. The first one is, are parents allowed to be there for the debate, like just watching?
Yes. Spectators are allowed.
Yeah, like the audience, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, got it. And also, will we know our opponents for the semifinals?
We'll release draws on that day only, not before.
Oh,
Excuse me, ma'am.
got it.
Not like this. No, not like this. I'll first acknowledge and then. Yes, Saisha, now that you've unmuted yourself.
Ma'am, actually, is paper reading going to be allowed for juniors?
Sure, yeah. Junior category will have some relaxation because you're just starting out.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Scott, is that Scotchy? Is that how you pronounce it?
Ma'am, Zaira. I'm doing it from my mom's phone.
All right, yeah, fair. Hi, Zaira. Yes, question.
So, ma'am, how many people can accompany me at the competition?
There's no upper limit. How many do you want to get?
Ma'am, like 4 people.
Yeah, that should be okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Yes, senior team Assam.
Hello, ma'am. I wanted to ask that if suppose my mother wants to come with me to the match, would she require an invitation that you all spoke about in the beginning, or can she just
No. Invitation
come?
is only for your the people you are institutionally affiliated with, like your teachers, or you can get your guardians without invite. I mean, they're invited by default.
Okay, okay.
All right. You can lower your hand if your questions have been answered. Because I think I've answered all 3 of your questions. Senior team Assam, Saisha, is there another question?
Yes, ma'am. Just one last question.
Sure.
Ma'am, are toddlers allowed at least 4 years old?
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yes. Just unmute yourself and ask now.
Ma'am, I have another question.
Sure.
Ma'am, are our parents allowed to sit in the debate room?
Yes, they're allowed to spectate.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can you just show the slides again, ma'am?
I'll be sharing the deck.
Okay.
And the recording, so it'll be fine.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.